Netflix has been known for its innovative and disruptive approach for more than a decade. Beginning as a small company in the late 90s, it led the way in developing the contemporary model for digital media consumption, resulting in immense success. However, being a trailblazer also means facing imitators. In the last decade, the number of streaming platforms has surged from 1 to over 200, with more expected to come. The competition, combined with creative decisions and growth challenges, has put Netflix in a precarious situation. Its stock price has fallen by 70%, and the company has had to lay off staff, with many households also canceling their subscriptions. In this episode, we'll explore how Netflix achieved its success, what went wrong, and what the future may hold. Netflix was started in 1997 by Randolph and Reed Hastings. The story of its origins is pretty interesting. One day, Reed Hastings became annoyed when he got charged $40 by Blockbuster for returning a VHS tape late. Being a mathematician, computer scientist, and entrepreneur, he believed he could create a better way. Later, while Reed was carpooling with Mark, they both were admiring the success of Amazon. They discussed their own ideas of shipping items over the emerging internet. They thought that VHS tapes were too fragile and expensive, so they settled on DVDs, which were brand new at the time. After a small test run of shipping DVDs to themselves, they decided to go for the idea, and in that moment, Netflix was born, and the company soon grew quickly. Interestingly, Netflix approached Blockbuster in 2000 with a $50 million offer, thinking it was a joke. Blockbuster laughed them straight out of the office. Blockbuster CEO John Antioco believed that this whole .com thing was overhyped. Undeterred, Netflix continued to grow. Later, in 2004, Blockbuster realized their mistake and soon launched their own DVD rental service. Unfortunately for Blockbuster, bad management and excessive company debt led to its demise. In 2007, Netflix pivoted to online streaming as high-speed internet became more commonplace. This proved to be the perfect move, and things really took off for the company. We should remember that in the late 2000s into the early 2010s, the streaming platform model for consuming television and movies at home was considered revolutionary. And at the forefront of this revolution was Netflix. With a long head start, Netflix was the first and only majorly successful platform for streaming TV shows and movies from a massive range of studios. There was enough quality content that consumers were happy to pay for. $8 per month for Netflix versus $50 a month for cable was a great deal at the time. It truly felt like a new era of media consumption. The Netflix model was so successful that it changed consumer perceptions. Free-to-air content with advertising became insufferable. Bloated paid TV companies that once held a monopoly seemed outdated in comparison. Netflix kept growing and wasted no time spreading its wings. By 2010, it was available in the US, Canada, Latin America, and the Caribbean. By 2012, it had made its way to the UK and Australia. Original content soon followed with extremely well-received shows like 2013's Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, Black Mirror, and later Stranger Things. It truly cannot be understated just how exciting this time was for consumers, particularly those outside the US. Netflix was a slick product, unrivaled. It is quite the success story, especially when you consider that Blockbuster was once Netflix's main competitor. Where one company embraced the change and led a movement of disruption, the other failed to adapt. Before long, Blockbuster was bankrupt, and Netflix became one of the most profitable companies on the planet, peaking at a valuation of $306 billion. You cannot innovate and be successful for long before others take note of your idea. By the late 2010s, this is exactly what started to happen. At first, the competition was from similar startups, but before long, the megacorporations decided to throw their hat in the ring. Over the past few years, corporations with seemingly endless funds have started rolling out their own streaming services. For $5 a month, Apple TV Plus focuses on premium content. Also for $5 a month, NBC Universal's Peacock took many US sitcoms away from Netflix. For $15 per month, HBO released HBO Max and blew critics away with new shows like Succession. And the biggest of all, the tyrannical IP monster that is Disney launched their very own Disney Plus, which took away all the remaining nostalgia from Netflix, as well as adding original content from the Marvel IP and other TV shows and movies. It was $12 a month for all of that. For context, a standard Netflix account now costs almost $16 per month, making it one of the most expensive options. We will touch on how this is hurting the company later, but at this point in the story, despite all the added competition, Netflix was still number one and was in store for some big wins thanks to a massive event that came out of China. During the early stages of the pandemic, Netflix enjoyed a massive boost in subscribers, along with most other platforms, despite its competition. People were stuck at home, and there was a time when everyone was talking about Tiger King. Netflix gained tens of millions of new subscribers over 2020 and into 2021, and they became known as the king of the stay-at-home stocks, a category which saw massive investment. Even midway through 2021, Netflix was still gaining subscribers, but this would all change. As vaccines rolled out, and the pandemic waned, consumers were no longer homebound, and Netflix had a problem. Consumers spent over a year sampling everything that each service had to offer, and now they were well informed to decide which ones they wanted to keep and which ones they wanted to get rid of. The increased quality and quantity of competition, the poaching of IP from Netflix, and a slowdown in subscriber growth could only mean one thing. There was a reckoning coming for Netflix. In mid-April 2022, Netflix investors abandoned the company en masse. This was after it was revealed that the service had lost 200,000 subscribers globally in the last quarter and was expected to lose millions more in the next. The original estimate was actually for growth of 2.5 million. This was the first time in a decade that Netflix had lost more subscribers than it had gained in a quarter. The news was a shock and immediately caused the stock value to drop by 35%. $50 billion of value was wiped out from the firm's valuation overnight. Scared investors had begun to question, has Netflix peaked? In total, by the end of April 2022, Netflix had lost over 70% of its value since its peak. Some Netflix investors are furious. In fact, some shareholders are so unhappy that they filed a lawsuit against the streaming company. They claim that Netflix's management misled them on the financial outlook of the company. Netflix has cited several reasons for the loss of subscribers, including increased competition, people returning to work, the company's withdrawal from Russia, and password sharing between households, although the latter was not a significant concern in their earlier days. While these explanations are valid, they do not tell the whole story of Netflix. The company cannot rely solely on brand recognition and consumer inertia, particularly when other platforms are pushing boundaries and producing innovative content. While Netflix has a lot of content, finding the gems is becoming increasingly difficult. Initially, Netflix's exclusive content was remarkable, but now it seems that less of it is being produced, and favorite new series are often cancelled after 1 or 2 seasons, a common occurrence. Other complaints include an overemphasis on politically infused content, which does not perform well in any format. Netflix's pricing model compounds the problem. Price increases have become more frequent, with a standard Netflix account increasing from $9 per month in 2014 to almost $16, making it increasingly unaffordable for many households. With inflation and interest rates rising, consumers have less money to spend on entertainment, and Netflix is at the top of the list of things to trim. Why should consumers pay more for content that is slowly declining in quality and for shows that run the risk of being cancelled? The Netflix HD option is currently the most expensive streaming service available, which does not make sense in this market. The brand's confirmation that it will roll out a cheaper alternative with ads ironically turns Netflix into the same tired viewing experience that consumers fled years ago. During an interview with investors last month, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings admitted that he had never wanted an advertising tier for Netflix. Those who have followed Netflix know that I'm against the complexity of advertising and a big fan of the simplicity of subscription, he said, adding that advertising is necessary for those who want a lower price. This behavior suggests a frantic concern, particularly given the layoffs that have hit the company, none of which inspire confidence in Netflix. The company is shedding subscribers, clutching at straws for revenue-raising ideas, laying off staff members, and experiencing a plummeting stock value, all of which are terrible signs. Even Netflix executives themselves have predicted that the coming months will be equally as challenging. So what's next? Will Netflix adapt and survive, or will another company rise to become the king of streaming? Netflix's business was completely replicable, so it's not out of the question, but perhaps there's something lurking in the wider picture. Maybe right now, we're in a scenario like the video game crash of 1983. We're in for a streaming crash. Maybe there are just too many choices, spreading consumers too thin, creating a market that's saturated and can't be sustained. As seen in the last episode with the catastrophic failure of CNN's streaming platform, we could be in the midst of a mini streaming bubble at the moment and just not know it. Ultimately, we have to wait and see what happens. In saying all of this, there's a high chance that Netflix has simply just had its time in the sun. It's reached its peak of profitability, and any new changes to increase it will result in more subscribers shedding. Whatever the case is, it's going to take some time to play out. Maybe in the far future, in an ironic twist, we might be talking about Netflix in the same vein as Blockbuster. Alright, cheers guys. Have a good one and subscribe to Trending Updates.